Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and joining me, Be'ez Hashem, in this He'emanti space, He'emanti ki adaber, that the more we speak words of emunah and bitachon Be'ez Hashem, the more we will get strong. And I hope that by supplying words of emunah bitachon, we can repeat them to ourselves. And through repeating to ourselves words and thoughts of emunah bitachon, we will strengthen our inner voice in emunah and bitachon Be'ez Hashem. So we're talking today about Parshas Ki Tetzei. And last year, I remember hearing Rav Shimon Spitzer, who is a big mashpia in Karlin, in Eretz Yisrael. And I remember hearing talking about Milchemes Amalek. And he said, we tend to think that Shalom is the most important midah. And of course, Shalom is a huge midah. One of the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Shalom. But we also have a passage that says Hashem ish milchama. Hashem has this powerful midah of going to wage war. And in the beautiful piyut that we sing on Shabbos morning, we talk about Hashem as being strong and being a gibor at times of war. Einim Zmirais, we mentioned Hashem as appearing in times of war. So Rav Shimon Spitzer is saying that every midah that is used to describe HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a midah that we should aspire to. So that's just a different framing for us, who we've been kind of brainwashed against fighting. Now, I am definitely not going to go and encourage my children to start having a fight about, how loud the music is supposed to be and who gets to do which job. That's not the kind of fighting that we're talking about. But in a recent conversation that I had with Rav Yeshayahu Kaganov, he told me that fighting on behalf of the oppressed is a mitzvah in the Torah. Basisa hatoiva yashar. We have to do the right thing. And he said the whole system of Beis Din was created in order to protect the oppressed. And so going to fight on behalf of those who are suffering, on behalf of the oppressed, is a mitzvah of the Torah. And so Shimon Spitzer said that sometimes Hashem sends us an Amalek in order to arouse this midah of Hashem ish milchama within each and every one of us, that we need to stand up and fight. And sometimes it takes an Amalek appearing in our midst, some kind of enemy coming up. But the midah of fighting is an appropriate midah. Again, just like every single midah, it has to be used in the right way. Midah chesed, giving. Who can fathom the power and the holiness of midas chesed, of doing kindness, and yet inappropriate relationships within the family are called chesed. If a person has an inappropriate relationship with his sister, Rahman Islam, it's called chesed. It's an inappropriate form of chesed. It's taking the midah of kindness and giving, and it's abusing it. And so standing up against the wrong use of the midah of chesed is appropriate. And when it comes to milchama, a person could fight all day long, and we probably know people who know how to make a fight in an empty room. And yet, the midah of Hashem ish milchama, of Hashem is a mighty warrior. We need to take that upon ourselves. Sometimes we're a little bit too much pacifists. Sometimes we've learned a little too much from the non-Jewish world about pacifism and raising our hands and doing nothing, and that's not appropriate when it comes to the oppressed. So again, Rav Kaganov said very clearly that many we have the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. So I asked him this question. We have this. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Ha'imeh sheli v'shelcha shelcha is a midah beinonis. That's whoever says what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. He's a beinoini. He's a a regular person. A person who says, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine, is a fool. Okay, that's idiocy. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. Okay, that's a messed up way of thinking. A person who says, what's mine, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine, that's a Rasha. And a person who says, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is a Chassid. So I said to Kaganov, I said, what happens if we have if you have the Chassid who says what's mine is yours and what's yours is yours, and then you have the Rosh who says what's yours is mine and what's mine is mine? It sounds like it's a perfect match. The Chassid gives everything to the Rasha. The Rasha ends up with everything. Maybe that's just the way the world is supposed to be. And so Reb Kaganov said, no, absolutely not. What's written in Pirkei Avos, he says, is Midas Chasidus, okay? And Chasidus is not to be used to abuse the oppressed. If a person is makes a reckoning for himself, and he understands that he can go beyond the letter of the law, and that it's appropriate across the board. It's not because of brainwashing or oppression, but he's decided to do it for the Ribono Shel Olam, to be Mischasadim Hashem. And he understands that giving of his possessions is the next level in his service of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, such as the Brisker Rav, whose home was Hefka, and he didn't even have a bed. He lived all over the place. If we're talking about the people like Chaim Sanzer, Zecher Tzadikim Devracha, where whatever money was in his house at the end of the day, he gave it away. We're talking about huge Tzadikei Olam. That's very, very different than a woman in our times who grew up feeling that she wasn't allowed to have anything for herself, who grew up not even in touch with having needs, who grew up feeling that that even just asking for something for herself is in some way she doesn't even deserve it. It's a very different picture. And so Jacob said, so many people have been brainwashed to not believe that they deserve something, to feel that even speaking up is out of line. And in those kind of situations where somebody has been oppressed, it is our job in Klal Yisrael to stand up for the oppressor, to make sure that the right thing is done. That's not called Midas Chasidus. That's called a travesty of justice. To allow the Rasha to exploit somebody is not Midas Chasidus on the part of the exploited. Okay, so no, setting up the Rasha and the Chassid so that the Chassid can give everything to the Rasha and the Rasha can run all the way to the bank with it. That's exploitation, and that's not what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do. So, the rules of war. Let's learn from Rabbi Asher what he says on the Parsha about the rules of war. So the Pasuk says, when you go out to war on your enemies, and Hashem will give them into your hands for Ezras Hashem. When we go out and do Ishtadlis. So many of us thought we lived in a generation where we weren't going to see war. And so many of us here in Eretz Yisrael, so here in the land that Kadosh Baruch Hu has given to us as a nation. And again, I'm not going to talk about the government in the nation or political ideas, but just being Am Yisrael in the holy land that Kadosh Baruch Hu has given to us. Kadosh Baruch Hu has shown us miracles over the last 6 months in war, and there are also tremendous tragic losses. So we've been living through war, and the waves of this war have been going on in anti-Semitism all around the world. So even if you weren't physically here through what was going on, you felt the waves, and the waves are still being felt all around the world. So it's relevant to talk about war. Who would have dreamed, and we definitely certainly didn't hope that was what was going to be. But war, unfortunately, it says in Haggadah, in every single generation, they're going to rise up against us to destroy us. And so we need to know that that's part of Klal Yisrael's existence in this world. We can't dream that we're going to live in peace. We can try not to be shocked at the wars that beset us on every side. So Russia says that a famous expert on war, famous general from the British Army in the time of the Second World War, was giving a course for generals and for war, for those who were going to be fighting in the war. And he gave them 3 rules that we have to follow during war. Okay, this is from a big general in the British Army at the time of war. Number 1, we need to know that you go out. Yoitzim, you go out to war. It's something you have to go out to do. It's an act of assertion. Because if we imagine to ourselves, and how true this rings today, as just as it did when it was written so many years ago, with the words of Rav Osher, if the nation will imagine to itself that some other nation is going to fight on their behalf, after what happened in the Shoah, where nobody lifted a finger to save Klal Yisrael, if we won't take our fate in our hands, and if we don't decide to go out to battle, we will be waiting in hope in vain. Baruch Hashem, we did have an ally in the White House who certainly came to help. We're certainly not going to say that he's Mashiach, but that he helped. He helped. Can we always rely on him? No, we cannot rely on anybody. We can thank the Kodesh Baruch Hu for the miracle that Trump, he should be well, and he should stay a friend of Israel, Be'ez Hashem, and support the Jews in our land. But we have to know that no one else is going to go out on our behalf. Let's not imagine that they will. And let's not rely on other people. When the underdog, when the oppressed is being abused, it is time to go out. That's what we need to do. We have to go out to war sometimes. We have to actually take steps and be assertive in order to protect the oppressed. And that's what the true nations of the world did against Iran. That was Rav Noach Weinberg, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, before he passed away, the last years before he passed away. He was constantly saying that Iran is the greatest threat. And he was constantly saying that. And that Baruch Hashem, that the greatest imminence of that threat was taken out over the last year is a huge miracle. We have to go out to war sometimes. That's klal number 1. Number 2, we have to know, what does war mean? What are going to be the fallout of war? We have to know how awful war is. We need to understand all of the different weapons of destruction that are being used in war, because it's not a game. And so we have to understand. So many different stories come to me of people who have been truly the victim of abuse. And we need to know the various different schemes, the various different tools for destruction. And when we go out to war against a physical enemy, we have to know what are the tools. It used to be that the enemy threw a bomb, chas v'shalom, and there was no way to stop it. It's incredible what has been created to protect Klal Yisrael over the last year. Where I was on the way to a chasana last night. Baruch Hashem, mechutanim, made the chasana. I was in a tender with my daughter on the way to the chasana in Netanya, and as we're in the car, we're about to drive out to Beit Ha'an. There's a siren. The chutim are again sending something over, and so all of us on the bus, we decided, okay, well, we're going to get off. We'll go into a building. We all went into a building, and one of the ladies on the bus with me, she says, we have to learn from the chutim. They just don't give up. They've been destroyed so much. So much has been destroyed, and they have to pay so much for this. Of course, they're being exploited by Iran, by the Iranian regime. It's not that they really have so much choice in the matter. They're puppets. But Baruch Hashem, it was intercepted. We can get back in. We can drive off to a chassid, to a simcha, even in the middle of a war that is still ongoing. Baruch Hashem, the chances of an actual fall are very slim now because of the methods of destruction that are being used. But if chas v'shalom there is a hit, it's a catastrophe. And the war catastrophe is like this. So we have to know both in physical war, and we have to know in interpersonal war and in oppression. What are the tools of oppression? We have to learn. There's lots of available information out around today. And interpersonal oppression is still going on. It's alive and kicking. And since the system of dayanim and laws is there to protect the innocent and to protect the underdog and to create a system, and we mustn't buy into this prevailing don't rock the boat. Rav Kaganov was even strong enough to say, he said that, if a person feels that their family is going against them and depriving them of their rights, you should take your family to Beis Din. He said, even people say, no, it's not nice to take the family apart. No, that's what Beis Din is for. Beis Din is supposed to support the underdog. Beis Din is supposed to support the oppressed. That's what all of this is about. We have to try. We have to try and do what we can do. And we have to understand that there are people who are out there who are using all kinds of destructive means to oppress other people. We have to know that. We have to know what war means. War is messy. War it's not a feel-good activity, okay? Sometimes the self-care of war could feel horrible. We don't want to make waves. We've been, as Rav Kaganov said, we've been brainwashed to a philosophy of constant peace. And especially during Elul, there are so many shirim out there and so many people talking about you have to just make peace with everybody, even if somebody was so nasty to you, just forgive and forget. And so I may be a lone voice out here, but as I said in a meeting recently that we had in the local Nashe, I said sometimes there was a foul-smelling spice in the ketores of the Beis Hamikdash. I don't mind being the foul-smelling spice. If somebody has to say you have to go out to war, sometimes it's time to fight on behalf of the oppressed, while all the world is saying peace, 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 I don't mind being the foul-smelling spice. Sometimes it's time to go for war and protect those who are being oppressed. And that's what the Torah wants us to do. You have to do what is good and what is true and what is right. And allowing the oppressed to continue to be oppressed is not the right thing to do. So war hurts. War, there's going to be fallout. And yet it's still the right thing to do. And third of all, we have to know the enemy. We have to learn and to understand who he is, what he's doing, how he behaves. And only that way can we hope to win the war. According to those who explain various psukim on the parsha, they say that this verse about going out to war is also talking about Milchemes HaYetzer. It's also talking about how to win the war with our own internal Yetzer Hara. And so we can therefore translate this, all of the concepts in this parsha, as being teachings about how to manage our own Yetzer Hara as well. So now we will take a switch and start talking about the Yetzer Hara. Now my little rampage about the oppressed. Okay, so the first rule, you have to go out. You have to go out to battle, says Rabbi Shabbat, against your Yetzer Hara. A person has to put upon himself the belt of war and actually declare war, meaning he has to stand up and declare war upon his Yetzer Hara. Otherwise, the Yetzer Hara is going to completely overtake him if we don't actually take a stand. Okay, so taking a stand. If he will imagine that someone else is going to step in and help him against his Yetzer Hara, no, it's not going to help. He will be bitterly disappointed, because the Pirkei Avos says to us, "Im ein anili mili," if I do not stand up for myself against the Yetzer Hara, who will? And so every individual in his own life, in her own life, has the responsibility to stand up and go out on their own war against the Yetzer Hara for themselves. Again, this is one of my pet peeves, is that, for example, when the whole world is talking about make peace with someone, forgive, forget, just let bygones be bygones, when we may be talking about somebody who is exceptionally damaging and dangerous and a very not healthy person, and you're suffering from any contact that you have with that person. So only you know. And sometimes, as Rabasha says, the Yetzer Hara could sometimes dress up as a tzaddik and says, make peace. No, it can be good for you. You have to make peace. Everyone's talking about making peace, and everybody needs there to be peace. But you know what? In your life, maybe the best thing for you is actually to create distance. Maybe in your life, it's better that you actually fight a battle on behalf of the oppressed so that they do not get further oppressed by this dangerous, malignant person who may be in your life and in the life of people that you love. So only you can fight your own Yetzer Hara. Sometimes doing what seems popular and everybody is doing, we think, well, that's what the Yetzer Hara is telling us. But actually, maybe it's not. How can we know? Through getting the guidance of a Das Torah who understands us, who has seen our lives, and who understands us and our own struggle and our own journey. There are Talmidei Chachamim out there who understand, and we just have to keep looking until we find. If we get a psak that feels so wrong, talk it over. Get a second opinion with another Rav. That doesn't mean shopping around. It's not like shopping around for psak. For you and your family, talk it over with another Rav. Okay, I don't mean ignore what a Rav says, but find the Das Torah that fully understands. Because, as I've said many times, and I will continue to say many times, with Mordechai Twersky, with Motla Twersky of the Hornsteifler Rebbe in America said that it is not a lack of emunas chachamim to say that a certain Rav or Rebbe or tzaddik does not understand personality disorders. It's not a lack of emunas chachamim. You can believe that somebody is a huge tzaddik and have faith in them as a tzaddik, and at the same time realize that they may not understand personality disorders, they may not understand addictions, they may not understand the mental health world and the fallout within mental health. And so we need to have informed Das Torah. Unfortunately, I have seen uninformed Das Torah say things about mental health situations that created a lot of problems and devastation. And it was only when a Rav who was informed about mental health issues stepped in that things really got better. So we have to understand then, so let's see 1 second. Okay, the next rule of battle Rabbi Asher brings down to us is we have to understand war and what it is. We have to understand that the tools of destruction that the Baal Davar, that the Yetzer Hara has in his hands, in order to know how to overcome him. Going out to battle, sometimes war means that we have to give up on certain pleasures in life. It used to be in war times. I mean, one of the standing jokes in my family was, as soon as the war began, I bought some long life milk and put it in our safe room because I want a cup of tea and I wanted to make sure that we always have milk available. Okay, so my children, don't stop laughing. Mommy, did you drink your long life milk yet? Is the milk still in the in the room? Okay, it used to be in war. Like I was here in the Gulf War. I don't know if many of you might have been here in Eretz Israel in the Gulf War. My firstborn was born. Should live and be well. He was born during the Gulf War. And as a new mother, first time mother, we had to go. The sirens are wailing, and we had to go into the sealed rooms and all of that stuff. I'm sure many of you remember that. So, at that time, we stocked our sealed rooms with all kinds of things, and we actually ate the stuff that was in the sealed rooms. We had to sit and wait until they were all clear and all. So you put things into your sealed room. It hasn't. Most of the time over the last year that we 2 years that we've been listening to sirens and taking cover, usually we're not there for more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes sometimes, and you don't really feel like eating, and so at a certain point I took out the long life milk, used it for something else, it didn't have to stay in the sealed room anymore, and we don't have supplies in the sealed room anymore. Okay, Hashem Yishmerei, Hashem should always guard us and look after us, and see that we don't need it. But that used to be what needed to be in times of war. So Rav Asher says sometimes it means that you don't have anything. It used to be that there was a rush on bread, on toilet paper, and truly before the attack from Iran. That night, everybody was out buying water. Everybody was out buying batteries. There are certain things that you need. And when you're sitting in a sealed room, when you're sitting in your safe space, you're there. You have to be mavater on. You have to give up on certain creature pleasures. We're here. We're in this space. It's not fun, but we are here. We need to make the best of it. That war is serious. You keep long life milk in your cabinet all the time. Okay, good for you. Good to be prepared, right? So the point is that war means giving up on certain creature pleasures. And so the war against the Yetzer Hara means sometimes, we're not going to have a cup of milk and coffee after we had a fleishik steak. We're not going to do that. We have to give up. Listening to the Torah, listening to the mitzvahs of the Torah involves limiting certain physical pleasures. That's part of the fight against the Yetzer Hara. And we have to understand that that's part of what the war entails. The war entails a certain fight against that. Now, after understanding this, let's just give an example from the life of Reb Asher himself, one of his Talmidim told a story that one time they went on a whole day trip to Miran, and they've been davening, and the travel it's not as easy as traveling to Miran now. Now you can travel in a beautiful air-conditioned bus. The roads are great and smooth. In the time of Reb Asher, it was the roads weren't as great. The buses were not air-conditioned. It was bumpy. Sometimes had to make different kinds of connections. And after a day traveling there and back and a long day davening, they finally came back around 2 or 3 in the morning. And this time it said, I was curious to see what Reb Asher was going to do. He was clearly exhausted. What was he going to do? He watched Reb Asher leave the tender, and he also came out and was waiting around the corner watching his Rebbe. As in the old time, Hasidim used to watch their Rebbes to see what they did. Reb Asher got out, and instead of going into the house, he walked around the block once, and then walked around the block another time, in order to break his need that he was fighting against the Yetzer Hara, so that the need for sleep shouldn't overcome him, and he should fight against it. That was the model of Reb Asher. And we have to understand again this difference between Midas Chasidus and the oppressed who don't even know their needs. If a healthy person knows their needs and is on a trajectory of honest spiritual growth, where they understand that this is the next step for them in their own personal fight against the Yetzer Hara, then that was the level for Reb Asher. For a woman who is going through, let's say, certain kinds of, maybe she never really fully knew her needs. She didn't know how much sleep she needed. She's been living in a cloud of exhaustion. Maybe she's not actually getting enough sleep or enough rest or enough restorative kinds of support and activity. So she's so drained. For her to decide, I'm going to do without sleep because that's Milchemes HaYetzer, is ludicrous. And that was buying into the Yetzer Hara. How do we know the difference? Only through dibuk haverim, through talking it out with friends. Whether that friend is your husband, whether that friend is a dear female friend, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a Rav or Rebbe, it's somebody. We cannot know for ourselves. We really have to talk it out with somebody who knows us, who knows our history, and who can see the trajectory. Is this the natural stage? I remember at a certain point years ago, I said to a friend, I'm doing tshuva for something that I said. And she looked at me and she said, you're always doing tshuva for something that you said. I'm like, oh, thanks for telling me that. It's like, it's good to have a friend who reminds you of these things. We need to have friends. We need to have some people in our lives who know us, who know our trajectory, and who know our journey, who can help us understand, yeah, that makes logical sense as a next step for you, for who you are, or I'm not sure that's a good idea for you because it doesn't seem actually that it's an authentic step for you. We really need to have other people because we're not authentic. We're not objective enough. We have blind spots. And sometimes we've convinced ourselves that we've been brainwashed into certain things and we don't see them. And so we need to surround ourselves with supportive people and have those with whom we can discuss these things so that we get a clear understanding of what is truly our next best step. As the Barsha says, sometimes we don't eat something because the kashrus isn't so clear. And we need to be ready for that. That's what fighting the Sahara means. Fighting the Sahara, sometimes the next step might be an unpopular move. It might be something that doesn't look so good. And yet it may be the right step for us. And that's what war also means. War isn't pleasant, okay? Standing up for the right thing isn't pleasant. And so we have to understand that that's what war entails. It entails sometimes doing things that are uncomfortable. And sometimes doing something new that we've never done before feels very uncomfortable. And the third rule is you go out to fight your enemies. You have to know who the enemy is. Your enemy is very, very tactful. I mean, has tactics, all very amazing tactics, strategy, and is very capable of changing its disguise in all kinds of weird and strange ways. He could even wear the costume of a tzaddik, as we mentioned before, and that is how he throws you into the bin. His strategies are many and very, very clever. And so we have to learn what are the strategies of the Yetzer Hara. Bracha gets a delightful lady who lives in Beitar, who attended some of my workshops that I gave her in Beitar, wrote a children's book about the strategies of the Yetzer Hara. And I bought it and enjoy very much reading it to my grandchildren. And so she mentions that some of the strategies of the Yetzer Hara are, number one, makes you feel that you don't have everything and everybody else has. And it makes you look at what you don't have. It makes you see what everybody else has. And so it makes you feel like you're the victim, like you're a miskin. Sometimes we are actually a victim. And sometimes we don't realize all that we have. And that's one of the ways that it keeps us busy. Another way is it makes us feel like now, I can't wait. I have to have it now. I want it to be now. I want it to be perfect now. And patience is a way that we can quieten down or rather take the side against the Yetzer Hara, is that I know how to plan. I don't have to have it now. I can think it through. I can create a plan for taking care of my needs. It doesn't have to be now. And one of the plans of the Yetzer Hara is to make us. One second, what was the last one I wanted to say? Because I don't have this book in front of me right now. 1 second. Went out of my head. Doesn't matter. It's a delightful book. If you ever want to see it, it's called "Don't Read This Book." Right. Okay. So the basic understanding is that the Yetzer Hara has all kinds of tricks up his sleeve. And what works for one person is not what works for another person. So we're all on our own journey with our own personal Yetzer Hara. That's the main takeaway over here. Oyevecha, your enemy. And so we need to understand our Yetzer Hara is coming up against us uniquely because of who we are. And it's going to be testing us with our own nisyonis, not what everybody else is being tested with. And so we need to find our own path against our own personal Yetzer Hara. V'yalakol, and above everything, says Rav Asher, we have to know that we have to daven before Kadosh Baruch Hu, that He will help us in this milchama. Ki ilmale HaKadosh Baruch Hu oizroi eina yachal, because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not help us, we cannot succeed against the Yetzer Hara. And only if you, Ben Adam, if you do what is incumbent upon you, and you go out to war with all of your strength against this enemy of your Yetzer Hara, then you will be able to be Mekuyim the pasuk, V'nasnu Hashem Elokecha b'yadcha. Then you will get the bracha of an Hashem, your God will give this Yetzer over into your hands. So, on all the levels of going out to war, we have to go out. We have to know it's unpleasant. We have to know that we have an enemy. We have to get to know our own personal enemy on all of these levels. We have to educate ourselves. That's the war of our lifetime. And we can't be pacifists. We can't sit on our hands and say, well, the whole world loves peaceful people, so I'm just going to be a peace lover. We can love peace, and we can be Roidev Shalom, and at the same time, we can go out to fight on behalf of the oppressed, and we can go out to fight against our Yetzer Hara, and take that mead of Hashem Milchama, of Hashem is a warrior, and we can become the warrior inside ourselves. We have to take the strength. Sometimes women say that they feel so angry about something that happened, but they feel horrible that they feel angry. The purpose of anger is to turn into this midah of Hashem Ish Milchama, to use that anger, to use it against the oppression of others and of ourselves, and also to use it against the Yetzer Hara. And as Usher said, above all, to daven to Kadosh Baruch Hu. We have to do all the hishtadlis. We can't only daven and then don't put in the effort. You have to go out against the Yetzer Hara and against the external enemies. And if you do that, if you stand up against the enemies, within and without, then you can daven, and daven to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Then He will, Be'ez Hashem, give over the enemies into our hands, and may Kadosh Baruch Hu give all of the enemies of Klal Yisrael into our hands, both the external enemies, the enemies from within Klal Yisrael who are standing up and oppressing us, the enemies around the world who are oppressing us, and the Yetzer Hara within. May Kadosh Baruch Hu give all of those enemies into our hands. Be'ez Hashem. If anybody wants to say something, ask me a question in the chat, unmute yourself. Love to hear from you, my dear friends. Anyone want to tell me anything? Say something. Great to see you and hear from you.
Just saying thank you. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much for speaking up, for seeing you. Second, someone said something. What's the? Okay. All right. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful week. Have a beautiful Shabbos. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I really am so grateful for you being here. Calls of everybody. Bye-bye. Oh, I just want to mention before we end that anybody who's in Eretz Yisrael, I'm starting next week on Tuesday a brand new experiential series of forming vessels. We're going to be working with ceramics with my dear daughter-in-law Elisheva, where we're going to be making beautiful ceramic pieces, and it's going to be a group experience of prayer and hope and crafting our goals and tuning into our authentic growth selves for the new year, together with crafting vessels for the new year out of ceramics. We have a kiln on site. We'll be glazing them and beautifully painting the different things. It's going to be a 6-part series starting on Tuesday between 2:30 and 4:30 in the afternoons in Beitar. If you want any information, please send me an email to chaya613@gmail.com. And I would love to see anybody from this Emanti community that wants to come and join us in Beitar. There are buses from Yerushalayim, from Beit Shemesh, wherever you want to come from. There are buses. And I'd love you to join me if you want to come and join me in person for that series. So, bye, everyone.